Food security, number one, is do we have the nutrition that we need? This was like our mission: get healthy food to families that it means something to, that need it, want it, and work with the farmers that really care about the quality of the food that they raise. But whether you're raising cows or whether you're raising fruit, it all starts in the soil. We sell a book at Azure called Seed to Seed. It will tell you the categories of the various families of vegetables that you can grow that won't interpollinate and which ones will interpollinate. You know, farmers in general are not necessarily very good at marketing.
Right.
They grow food. They may be super passionate about their soil, all of that, but you ask them to go talk to somebody about healthy food and they don't really have an outlet. If you look in Genesis, the plants of the field were given to us for food and for medicine. Now my goal is to be able to give the better product, completely replace the grocery store.
Hey Mom, it's Trish. Every conversation, every story, and every resource I share has one purpose: to help you homeschool, not by adding more to your plate, but by offering creative ideas and resources to awaken your child's sense of wonder. Because homeschooling isn't just about curriculum, it's about building a love of learning, discovery, and lifelong memories with your family. God has called us for this task. So take a deep breath and welcome to the greatest adventure of your life. Let's do this together. Hello, it's Trish with Hip Homeschool Moms, and today we're having another homeschool conversation, and I'm excited to introduce you to somebody I just met, but plan to get to know very well over the next couple of months. His name is David Stelzer. Hello, David. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to talk to you. And David is the CEO and founder of Azure Standard. And so I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about Azure Standard, because today we're going to be talking about food security. And I want him to explain how Azure Standard came to be, but also how that fits into food security. So, David, tell us about Azure Standard.
My life was changed early on when I was very young through diet. I was very, very sickly. Interestingly enough, my grandfather was also very, very sickly, or had heart trouble, really. It wasn't that he was sickly like I was, but he was, couldn't even work because of his heart and all this. And when we changed as a family, our diet, mostly because of the issues that I had, my parents changed, really. I was still pretty young. My health issues cleared up, and my grandfather's did as well.
Wow.
And it was so that made our family understand the importance of diet and how it relates to health. That's not always well known because a lot of conventional medicine teaches you that, oh, whatever you eat doesn't have anything to do with it. It's genetics, it's luck, it's something else.
They like selling pills.
They like selling pills, sure. But diet does have a major factor, and I know that, and I'm very passionate about that. So if fast forward a little bit, Dad actually got convicted. We were farmers, always have been farmers, still are, but my dad got convicted about using chemicals on the farm after, the diet change, and that it took 4 or 5 years later before he realized and connected the dots. And so he became one of the first large organic farmers in the state of Oregon. He was the first one we had about 1,800 acres that we were farming at the time. And he completely switched 100% to organic farming. Back the last year that any chemicals were used on this farm was 1973.
Wow.
So it's been a long time.
And having all the land that you have now, that protects the food, because that was actually something we were, I was telling you earlier, we're going to do regenerative farming, and the farm next door does not. And so we already now know that either we're going to have to lease that land to protect this land, or we're going to be dealing with chemicals on our land. So now that you have that big farm, you don't have any issues there.
Well, it's not, at this point, it's not 100% contiguous. So we do have some neighbors still. So that's not completely True.
Oh.
On the main home farm, yes, we pretty much own the whole plateau.
Mm-hmm.
The way we're kind of in the eastern foothills of Mount Hood, so there's kind of deep canyons and then plateaus in between the canyons. And so we're pretty much have two of the plateaus. So we really don't have any neighbors on the main
That's
farm
great.
to speak of, that do any kind of intense agriculture.
That's good. That's great.
Very, very little. But on some of the other farms we do. And we've had our share of going around with that.
Mm. It
And I
is
could share that story at some point, but probably not to do with food security in this
right,
day.
right.
Originally, my dad, he farmed primarily for a brand that's now called Bob's Red Mill. I don't know if you've ever seen
Oh
that brand.
yeah. Really? I didn't know that. That's something new. See, I learned something new already. Wow.
Well, Dad and Bob Moore, who founded Bob's Red Mill, they were friends back in the day. In fact, Dad helped him get his first stones from a little mill down here in Boyd, just out of Doofer. So, I mean, they kind of had this deal going. Dad was going to be the farmer and Bob was going to be the miller. And then there was a guy named Fred Meyer who owned a grocery store chain on the West Coast that was going to be kind of the retailer. And so that all worked okay for, 5 or 6 years. And then Fred Meyer got old and decided to retire. And it took a couple years, but eventually the investment group that he sold to decided they didn't want this expensive organic stuff.
Yeah.
And so Bob Moore with Bob's Red Mill, he just quickly pivoted. He said, "Oh, no problem. I'll just put conventional in these bags." So he took the organic off the bag and he started putting conventional in all the bags.
Oh.
Dad refused to pivot. He wouldn't do it. So that was when, you know, Dad and Bob had a little bit of a separation there.
Oh.
No fight, but the deal was over.
Right. Right.
And so we had a bunch of grain because when that happened, we already had planted. So we had a lot of grain, and I was young and stupid, and I figured I could probably find the people that wanted organic grain. And so I went out and I found a mill up in Yakima that would grind some of our wheat and grain into flour. We had wheat and rye primarily. So basically three things. We had hard wheat, soft wheat, and rye.
Right.
Okay. Well, big, at that time, I thought, we were not very diverse because we were growing for Bob. And so he ground some flour for us, this other miller. And so I went around to health food stores, co-ops, and stuff like that, trying to peddle our own organic grain. In a few years, trying to keep this short, I started getting people ask, primarily started out more friends and family, but I got even other people telling other people word of mouth that, hey, because I started these little routes where I would deliver because distribution is completely out of reach of the average small producer. Still is to this day, but it was then for sure. So I started delivering and, oh, you're going to Portland, or you're going to Seattle, or you're going wherever. Can you pick me up this or that or the other? So I started doing it. And finally I got this, hey, you know what? If these people want this, wonder if other people want it. And I could actually you know, help it to use to pay for fuel and stuff instead of just doing it as a favor all the time.
Right.
So
A
I
business
was
plan was hatched.
Yeah, a crazy idea, right? So I actually put together a little catalog of all the things that people ask for the most often. It was just like 3 or 4 pages folded over. I was newly married at the time, and so we sat down at a typewriter and we wrote up, made this little catalog and sent it out to everyone that I knew and told them, hey, give it to your friends and neighbors that might want this. So that's the first time we actually used the name Azure as well. Before that, we were Stelzer and Sons Husbandry,
Oh.
but um, we started using the Azure
And
name.
when was that?
This would have been about 1987.
Okay.
Winter was, during the Christmas holiday. We don't really keep that, so we were doing this while everyone else was shut down, right?
Right.
Uh,
Yep.
and that's kind of when that happened.
And now the catalog is like 550,000 pages long. The cell catalog is bigger than that. Just the cell catalog is bigger than that.
Oh yes, the sale catalog is way, way bigger than our first catalog for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the start of Azure, and our whole mission at the time was to get healthy food to people. This was like our mission: get healthy food to families that it means something to, that need it, want it, and work with the farmers that really care about the quality of the food that they raise. Now the term regenerative is well used, but then that term wasn't used, but basically the same concept.
Right.
Farmers who cared about their land, took good care of the land, maybe, and were raising high quality, nutrient dense food. The average farmer, he holds out both hands and he says, how much do I have to pay for fuel, tractor, whatever, land, all the things? He holds out the other hand. He says, how much will you give me for my cattle, my grain, whatever? Set by the Iowa Beef Council, the Chicago Board of Trade. They have no influence on anything except quantity. Well, if quantity is the only factor, then quality begins to suffer immensely.
Yeah.
And so maybe that would be my segue to food security.
And that's
Um,
actually something that we have a basement. We've been here 25 years. And one of the reasons I wanted a basement was for that. But I wanted a pantry. I wanted a very, very, very large pantry. I also wanted it for storms. As you know, I got hit by the tornado recently. So I'm very glad I had it. But I think I started, so I'm going to date myself. Y2K was a thing. My husband was in IT, and still is. And I was an IT recruiter way back when and owned a staffing agency. And so I was worried about Y2K. And so I was worried about food security way back then. So this is a near and dear topic to my heart.
in many ways, that's when Azure grew up, was in Y2K, from the little off the farm to actually creating a full distribution network. That was when we started using semi trucks to deliver in and all of that. Those, we weren't nationwide by any means, but we were just here in the Northwest.
Right.
But, there were a lot of, back then it was mostly talk show hosts, and I didn't pay any of them, but there was quite a few of them that ended up mentioning Azure as a source for getting whole grains at
Right.
a good price, or and whole high quality grains like organic grains, because hey, if it's going to be, you're not going to want to do low quality food if there's an emergency situation. The last thing you want to do is get sick.
Right.
So having high quality organic grains.
So let's talk about what food security actually means. So let's kind of start there. What does that mean to you?
Well, to me, there's two aspects of food security. And the aspect that's maybe even more near and dear to my heart is the quality piece.
Mm-hmm.
Food security, we live in a nation right now that has way, way too many calories.
Mm-hmm.
People are eating way too many calories, but they are not getting the
Burning them.
nutrition that they need. We are the most nutrition deficient that we've ever probably been in the history. While we're getting obese, we are dying from lack of nutrition.
And our
That is
foods are terrible quality. I mean, a lot of other countries wouldn't even accept our exports because of the habits and the way they were grown or, processed or whatever. So,
mostly genetically modified thing is the biggest
yes.
deal for exports right now,
Yeah.
and has been for a while. But
Yeah.
yes, if you have genetically modified corn in that country, which most of Europe does not accept, we lose all of our corn exports to Europe, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And even some of the African countries won't accept the genetically modified corn,
Wow.
crazily enough. But you're right. So food security, number one, is, do we have the nutrition that we need?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have, you know, you mentioned earlier regenerative agriculture. Regenerative agriculture, I want to just share one really quick little story of So I was working with a company, and what they're trying to do is, yeah, I don't know if there's technology that allows somebody like that's doing recycling and stuff to scan a piece of metal and it will read what kind of metal, what kind of different alloys are in that metal.
Oh, wow.
So if they know there's aluminum or steel or whatever, so people who are recycling can sort it correctly and do that really quickly. So they're trying to use that same technology with a little bit better filter and put that and use it for food to get nutrition content for particular minerals, because it would be able to track minerals.
Right.
So they did this very long study, and iron, of course, is one of the pretty easy ones to get.
Right.
And a lot of people eat spinach, considered to be super high in iron, right? So eat
Right.
spinach
Popeye.
to get iron.
Yep.
So they decided to test spinach for iron. And so they took hundreds and hundreds of samples of spinach from the best regenerative farms, organic farms, conventional farms, grocery store, Costco, Walmart, all the whole 9 yards.
Right.
And from the lowest quality to the highest quality in iron. And remember, these all have the same nutrition facts on the panel because that's set by the government. We don't set that. The government does that. That's so nutrition facts are only good as how much you trust the government, just for what it's worth. Anyway, the actual amount of iron in the spinach from the highest amount of iron in spinach to the lowest amount of iron in spinach was a factor of 100 times. In the highest spinach was 100 times as much iron as in the lowest spinach after doing like
Wow.
hundreds of samples.
So what
So
was the
if you,
highest?
I didn't write down here the milligrams per, but it was 4 or 5 times the nutrition facts, and the
Wow.
lowest one was a fraction of the nutrition facts.
Wow.
The nutrition facts were somewhere in the middle.
I've never thought about the fact that that is an average, that that's just what they think it should have, and that based on your farming practices and probably even the variety of what you're planting will impact that.
That's correct.
Wow, I have never thought about that. And I've thought about food a lot. I've never thought about that. That's
Yeah. So
crazy.
the nutrition facts, yeah, unfortunately, those are set by, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. You just put it in a database. It's spinach. This
Wow.
is the nutrition facts for that, or whatever the formula of the ingredients are. That's the way that's done.
That's
So if you think about that, if you're trying to get spinach, you're trying to eat spinach to increase your iron content because maybe you're a little anemic or something like that, or you feel like you need a balanced iron. And, if you are anemic and you need iron, you want to get it from food sources, not from ferret irons. So spinach that's a right way to go, but make sure you know where you're getting your product, your product from. Is this from your organic garden or is this from Walmart?
wow.
Because it's nowhere close. If you think about it, you'd eat to get the same amount of spinach. If you ate 1 pound of spinach
Yeah.
this week, you would have to eat 100 pounds of spinach of this other.
I was sitting here thinking
That's
about that. That's insane.
that's like impossible. Maybe you could eat a pound of spinach in a week, but you couldn't eat 100 pounds in a week. There's
That
no
is
way.
I have never thought about that, David. That is a wild. I mean, just that alone makes you say, okay, so where's the most nutritious food going to come from? And obviously it's going to be organic farming.
It's from your organic and regenerative farms, and really, ideally both. A lot of farms, regenerative is not clearly defined at this point,
Right.
as far as a label goes.
Right. Finding that out.
ROC, yeah, ROC is created some standards, but they really aren't the ones that are traditional for regenerative.
Mm-hmm.
Regenerative is really about your soil health
Mm-hmm.
and how the bacteria, microbial counts in your soils. and the balance of the minerals in your soils, right?
I'm doing
That's
a Haley test as we speak,
okay.
just
So you're
so I could figure all of that out.
exactly. So you do the testing, you come up with a plan, you increase your microbes, you feed your microbes, you put appropriate minerals on the soil if there's, if something is out of balance. That's regenerative in a tiny nutshell.
Right, right,
Okay. Organic is based on what is not in the food.
right.
So there's no anhydrous ammonia used, which is a huge, big, big, big deal and
Hmm.
almost forces an organic farmer to think more regenerative. But organic label doesn't actually prove that he was regenerative.
Right.
But if he's in it for very long, he's going to get regenerative. He's going to go out of business because, really, even in our case, uh, you know, yields were pretty poor right after we switched to organic until we learned, till we got a hold of some of the Albright material and stuff like that, which was
Hmm.
kind of, he was, shall we say, the father of regenerative agriculture,
Hmm.
his work. But so we started using that, and then of course, things really turned around from a yield and quality perspective.
And the
But
ironic thing is, from what I'm gathering, is that you can actually grow more faster, better when you're using regenerative habits and principles. Then, I mean, we're looking at it for cows, but you're looking at it obviously for different, obviously, food. I mean, plant foods, but for cows, I know they're saying that regenerative farming, you can actually have more, cow calf pairs per acre when you have of course we won't, because you know what our farm looks like right now with all the everything's literally dirt right now. But and it'll take years for that to change, for our pastures to actually grow up. But from what I gather, you can actually have more cow calf pairs on it because it's healthier and more nutritious as long as you're moving them.
yeah, you're usually with regenerative on cattle, you're doing some kind of mob grazing,
Mm-hmm.
rotational grazing program along with a soil program.
Yep.
But whether you're raising cows or whether you're raising fruit, it all starts in the soil.
Yep.
Your soil, what are the nutrients that are getting into the grass? If the cows are eating the grass, everything starts with this little simple thing called photosynthesis, right?
Yep.
All energy for all life on earth starts there. And that's all, and how that works is based on your soil health.
Right.
So we're not, it's really not that different depending if and the only reason you can raise more cow calf pairs is because if you have nutrient dense food, they don't eat as much. The
Isn't that
same
wild?
thing is true with human health. If
What a great
we're
segue,
eating,
and I didn't know to do that, by the way.
if we have nutrient dense food, we don't have to eat as much. We're not as hungry. And, maybe it tastes good and we just want to, but there's no actual physiological reason that we need to eat as much as we do when we're eating conventional food.
That's amazing.
There's a lot of very nutrient deficient. So that's where I think food security is the most damaged and in the US. Now, if I want to move back into the pantry, which I think you're probably were talking
Yep.
about a little bit more, have I experienced it? My mom, she decided to start a pantry, a long time ago back in the 70s. This was, and so in our basement, we had some food down there. She put it in glass gallon jars and it was all organized in these like boxes and all this kind of, you know, and then, we would eat off of it. It wasn't like, it didn't like sit there and go to waste. We ate it.
Right.
And then, when we started getting low on something, we got another 50-pound bag or whatever and put that in jars.
Or got to making some
So
spaghetti sauce or whatever it was, right?
yeah, whatever the thing was.
Yep.
So then, but there was at least two times in my lifetime that saved us as when I was growing up. having that pantry. Of course, as an adult, I mean, we still have a pantry in our house, not quite to the extent that mom did, but we also live by a warehouse with,
One that you own. Yeah. So
yeah, that's
you have a much larger pantry now.
we have a pretty big pantry close to our house now. But anyway, it was twice. I mean, once was a natural disaster, and I mentioned it before. We ended up getting about 2 inches. We were living in Yakima at the time.
Right.
About 2 inches of sand fell all over everything when in 1980.
I
And
guess that decimated crops and everything.
well, yes and no. I mean, we didn't our farm didn't actually get hit because it was down here in Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
So we
Okay.
were outside. I mean, tiny little bit, but not enough to damage anything.
Oh, good. Okay.
But for the most part, most of the land that got a couple inches of ash, because it was in May, the crops were growing. So it did like destroy the first cutting of alfalfa and some stuff like that. But for the most part, the grain crop was the largest grain crop that was ever produced in the Pacific Northwest in all of history before or since.
So now everybody wants to put ash on their fields, right?
They're so dumb they don't, but
Oh, well.
you know, but it was crazy amazing because after all, it was some brand new fresh dirt from the top of a mountain.
Yep.
It's a lot like the dirt that was already there.
Yep.
Just we got 2 new inches of topsoil
Wow.
up there.
That's great.
But in the meantime, nobody knew how to drive in it. This had never happened before. It's this super fine sand. It got in everyone's air cleaner. It blew all the engines out until people learned how to change their air filters. Nothing moved. No trucks came in, nothing went in, nothing went out
Wow.
for about 2 weeks before they figured out what was making this happen.
Yeah, you wouldn't even think about that's when you think of food security, that is not part of it, is the air filter or in your car. But there you go. That's
Well, I mean, you're driving on like super
yeah.
fine sand.
Yeah.
It had a pretty high silica content. Actually, you could have made glass out of it easily. And it was
Wow.
just it would seep in because the air filters were not designed for that.
Right.
It seeped in around the edges of the air filters, went into the engines, and all the engines all needed ring jobs or had to be
Wow.
rebuilt. Anyone who tried to drive on it
I
until
would have never even thought about that. That would never have even occurred to me.
so nothing moved. Except, FEMA did bring in a few packages here and there, but we didn't have any trouble because we had a pantry in the basement that was easily could have lasted the 2 weeks.
Wow. That
So, but there were a lot of people around there that actually did go hungry and had to try to get FEMA packages in and stuff like that. Fortunately, phone lines and stuff stayed up, so people were able to call and, FEMA was bringing stuff in on helicopters and stuff. Not too many people died, but
mm.
they had to eat pretty bad. It was pretty horrible.
I can't even imagine. That's wild. We've never had a situation where we lost, except for like, snow and things like that, which that doesn't really, we kind of planned for that. When I was in North Carolina, we had hurricanes. Of course, I'm from the coast of North Carolina, but the food then, you can only take out what you can carry, obviously. So yeah, it's a little bit different. So interesting. I never would have thought about that though, a volcano and the silica getting into the engines. That never would have even occurred to me.
Anyway, so that was one case where we used it. Another time was completely on a personal finance situation.
Yes.
So I think it was 1982 or 3 or somewhere in there, my dad ended up getting in a very big fight with the IRS.
Mm.
And, it was completely unjust, but you know how some of that stuff worked. So the IRS came in and they not only did they take all the farm equipment, but they seized his bank accounts, every bit, 100% of the money that he had in the world.
Wow.
And not only that, but they put a levy on his social security number and his wages. So they would take 100% of anything he earned.
Oh my word.
Now, taxpayer bill of rights, they can only take like 60%. They can't take 100, but that was before the taxpayer bill of rights. So they took 100%, which basically left our family with zero income. They did not take the farm because that was still in probate from my grandparents. So dad didn't have any title to it at that time,
Which was a blessing.
which was a big blessing for sure. But they took everything else, everything that would move, every car, every vehicle, everything that we had.
Wow.
But the interesting part was, from a food perspective, we hardly noticed. We were able to still grow the garden,
What a blessing.
and we had all that stuff in the basement. So we were able to live with garden supplementation. Yeah, we grew a lot more potatoes and stuff than we did most years
Right.
because those are, but they grow fine here. So, no big deal. We can do that. And potatoes and flint corn, right? Those are probably the only time we ever grew bunches of that in the garden. But even tilled up another area for garden. But hey, we didn't hardly notice that there was any, we didn't have to eat poorly
Right.
because of that pantry.
Which is a really big deal for y'all, especially with your health. And because if you had gone back to eating unhealthy again, it would have impacted all of y'all.
Oh yeah, definitely, it was something that I couldn't do
Right.
because of that. So there's my personal testimony on why I really believe in a pantry.
So how does Azure help a family who wants to get started? I mean, y'all literally offer not just the food, but you even offer the canning supplies and everything. You have from A to Z, pretty much everything. So talk to us a little bit about, I assume that was part of your philosophy and your interest in food security was offering all of that.
Absolutely. And there's two things. One is, like I mentioned, we kind of grew up, as a company during the Y2K crises. And I realized, that a lot of people were buying food for stuff. And that's when we started thinking about, the buckets and the jars and some of those things to go along with it.
Right. Gamma
Um,
lids. I still have gamma lids.
Gamma lids.
Yep.
We actually just designed our own twist top lid. That's an
Oh.
Azure branded one with a better seal
No, see, I need
that
to get some of
is coming out now. Because a lot of the gammas, after a couple, a year or two, those steels start going out and bugs get in anyway. So we designed a new one. So that's a brand new item, relatively new item for Azure here. But anyway, we didn't have that back then
Right.
when we first started doing it. But I felt like it was so much better. Here's the thing. When you talk about food storage, there's all kinds of companies and tons of them sprung up during 98, 99
Mm-hmm.
that had, freeze-dried instant meals, this and that. Who would possibly eat that unless they were desperate?
MREs.
Basically, MREs,
Mhm.
exactly, or this or that. It's, really worthless as a part of a lifestyle.
Right.
This is maybe emergency food. You're going to put them in your basement. They're going to sit there 20 years. If nothing happens to happen, you're going to end up throwing it away.
Right.
That is not
That's
the
not
right,
food security.
that's not food security
I
in its
agree.
best sense. So how much better if we have, depending on how much you want to have, but if you have a bucket with a gamma lid on it, you could easily get into. You have 25 pounds of rice, beans, whatever it is. The thing is, in food security, you want to store the products that you use and that you know how to use.
And rotate it.
You
Rotate it.
and rotate it.
Yep.
If you eat a lot of beans and rice in your house, you like tacos really well or something like that, store beans and rice and the spices that go along with that and those kinds of things, right?
That was my
Maybe
mistake in Y2K was, you just store everything. That was the thing back then. You just stock up. And it's like, there are so many things that I stored that ended up getting thrown away, years and years and years later. But we went to way back when we went to the Mennonite. That was when the Mennonite canneries would let you come in. And can. So we did some, or Amish, I think it was the Amish cannery. And so we did some of that. And I actually still to this very day am using some of those, especially the dehydrated onions. So see, I did use some of it.
Yeah, no, some of those things will last a long, long time if that's what, is going that your family eats. But
Yep.
on the same hand, during that time, 3 or 4 years later, I can't tell you how many people wanted to sell their wheat berries back to me.
Oh
I'm
no.
like, no,
Yeah.
I can't buy your wheat berries back. That they're 5 years old, guys.
Well,
And I don't know how they've been stored. I mean, talk about food safety issues and all that.
right.
Yeah, I don't think I can do this. But well, why didn't you use the wheat berries? I sold you perfectly good wheat berries.
Make
Well, they didn't
yeah.
even have a grinder.
Oh, I did.
They stored wheat without a grinder, or they had a
I
hand
told you,
grinder.
Y2K, that's exactly what everybody was doing. They were just storing. Yeah.
They had a hand grinder that would take an hour to grind enough flour to make a loaf of bread. Like, who's going to do that? Nobody.
Yep.
So, if you're going to store grain, know how to grind it, you know? Have a grinder. I mean, we sell the Nutrimills. Currently, it's one of our best-selling, well, it is by far our best-selling mill, but those things will grind enough flour to bake a bread in a few minutes, and you don't even have to watch it while it does it. And that way you can rotate through if you stored wheat berries, you can, have fresh sourdough bread every day that you want
Mm.
to do that
Yep.
and still rotate through your wheat berries. If it's in a bucket in your basement, it's pretty simple. Just swap out the bucket. If you run out of one, now it's empty, swap out the bucket. You have a few empty
Get your
buckets,
order in.
buy another 50-pound bag of
That's right.
wheat
That's right.
or beans or rice, but store the things that you use and that you know how to use.
Yeah.
If you don't have a grinder, don't store wheat. Maybe store flour, but
Basic concept.
don't store wheat berries.
Yep.
Don't forget about things like spices.
Mm.
That's you mentioned that you canned some minced onions, but
Mm-hmm.
those kinds of things, salt, spices, it's a
Sugar.
very, very important part of making because if you're going to be cooking beans, because you stored beans and there's no salt, there's no onions, there's no garlic,
They're pretty
man,
bland.
I suppose you might be able to keep life together, but you're not going to enjoy it too
Not
much.
much.
It's not the best tasting beans. So
No.
store a little salt, store some dried some spices of various whatever the spices are that you would use, if it's chili powder, if it's onions, garlic, oregano, basil, all those basic things. Those dried spices will keep for a long, long time, and those also can be rotated easily.
I also noticed you sold seeds. Don't y'all have seeds for sale as well?
Absolutely, we do.
Heirloom seeds?
Heirloom seeds, open pollinated seeds, which is actually more important than heirloom seeds.
Interesting. Tell me that.
Is
Tell me about that.
open pollinated. Heirloom just means we've been using it for more than 50 years.
Well, and also that it'll regrow because I know now with all the
Oh,
the GMOs.
that's actually open pollinated. That means
Oh, okay. I'm glad you so explain that.
heirloom is just about time. So we've been growing that particular cultivar of plant for more than 50 years. Then it
Okay.
becomes an heirloom.
Okay. Oh. Oh, is that all?
That's all the definition is.
Oh my gosh. I'm glad you told me that too.
So you want ideally maybe open pollinated heirlooms. The vast majority of heirlooms are open pollinated, but we're starting to get into the age now that there are some hybrids and such that can be in the heirloom category.
Oh,
Just
okay.
so
Interesting.
that's easily understood.
Interesting. I did not know that either.
So
Um,
we want open pollinated seeds. The reason that you want open pollinated seeds is not necessarily because they grow less. I mean, if you're storing seed, you
right.
can do that anyway. But the reason you want it is because you can actually save the seed
That's right.
from an open pollinated plant and regrow that yourself.
That's
So
right.
you can save your own seed. And again, if you do save your own seed, you want to make sure that nothing in that, that you don't cross those plants inadvertently, because a lot of plants, the two different varieties will cross, and then it's no longer open pollinated, nor will it grow true to type. So for instance, if you have a zucchini and say like a delicata squash, those will cross. And if you save the seed, you're really not going to have a good zucchini or a good keeping squash either one. So make sure they're far enough apart.
So you need to be my neighbor. See, I didn't know that either. And I've been saving seeds for a long time, but and
Have
I
you
can
ever had any
learn
go
them.
off? Have you had any that you've regrown that have gone off?
No, not that I can recall. Mostly what I saved, honestly, were tomatoes, just because they're so easy to harvest. I mean, honestly,
Tomatoes are self-pollinating, so they're one of the easiest ones to keep from
yeah.
cross-pollinating because
And
they're
of course
not insect
beans,
pollinated.
and beans are better.
Beans are insect pollinated, so you can totally cross those.
That's so wild. Oh my gosh. See, I learned so much just talking to you.
Yeah, you could cross that. We sell a book at Azure called Seed to Seed.
Oh, it's such a good book.
Have you?
Apparently I need to read it.
It will tell you the categories of the various families of vegetables that you can grow that won't interpollinate and which ones will interpollinate.
Read obviously the things I needed and not that because I didn't think I needed that. So there you go. That's the homeschool mom in me. It's like a lot of the things we use the garden as an outdoor classroom, and I highly recommend that. There's actually an article on my website called, how to use your garden as an outdoor classroom. And I love doing that. But my habit is to use books as a reference instead of as sitting there and reading the whole book. And so there you go. All right. Obviously, skip that chapter.
There's several chapters actually in Seed to Seed. There's a chapter on each family of vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll do like, alums and,
Brassicas. And, yeah.
brassicas and so on like that. And it will tell you which ones interpollinate in
Oh,
each
that's
family.
so good.
That's an important part about saving
Well, and
seed.
it's part of food security, learning those kinds of things. And I think it's a great thing to teach our children. I think that that's something that's part of the problem is that we didn't learn it. How long has this been out of our educational system, where you actually learn to grow food and how to grow food and how to harvest seeds and how to, do the things that we're talking about, canning and storing food, things like that. For me, that was part of what I taught my kids as part of our homeschool. And I think it's a fantastic homeschool subject to talk about. Where does food come from, how to grow it, how to keep it, how to store it, food security.
Best way to teach biology there, right?
Yeah, it really is. We'll talk about that. We're actually going to talk to David. David homeschools. He's a homeschooler too. They have been homeschooling a long time.
In
So
all
we're going to be
fairness,
talking to
it's
him.
mostly my wife that does that.
Right,
But
right.
it's
Oh, come on. Now, you have to get involved a little bit. Even if it's
oh
just
yeah.
you have a business. Hopefully you got all your kids involved in the business. And so that was part of that, entrepreneurship that you were teaching.
I'd be happy to teach that part about homeschooling.
Yeah, but being homeschoolers, that's, I'm always looking for those opportunities to weave in what we do on a daily basis into our homeschool and into our curriculum. And so food security is one of those that I actually did weave in. Let's talk about Azure and because you mentioned earlier about, how expensive organic is. But one of the things that I have seen with Azure, especially when you're buying in bulk, it's actually not as expensive as I expected it to be. So let's talk about why that is, because we're missing the middleman. So let's go there.
Yeah, so that's a big part of it is we're missing the middleman. But Azure's whole mission is to connect the farmers with the consumer. So in a way, we are farmers as well, but in a way, we've kind of become that middleman, that distribution arm. But
Right.
what we do is we're able to, farmers in general are not necessarily very good at marketing.
Right.
They grow food. They may be super passionate about their soil, all of that, but you ask them to go talk to somebody about healthy food and they don't really have an outlet.
Right.
Even if they go to a farmer's market, okay, it takes every Saturday and they might sell $400 or $500 worth of product
Right.
at the local farmer's market. It's very discouraging for a farmer, especially when that's not their first love is out
Right.
selling stuff.
Right.
They'd much rather be,
In the field.
soil and taking care of the cows and doing all the things that a farmer
Yeah.
does.
Yep.
So that's been Azure's mission. So we work with these farmers, and because we understand farmers, we're able to help farmers find a market for their higher quality food and also tell when a farmer really is growing higher quality food versus not. And
That's
then,
actually going to be one of our conversations, not with you, but one of the things that I'm pretty fascinated with about Azure is the standards that y'all have for how you pick and work with vendors, those farmers. So we're actually going to have a whole conversation about that with one of your team members about how y'all pick vendors and how you screen them, et cetera. So, because that's,
yeah, and there's two sides to that. One is with a lot of the farmers, they're selling us commodities. So we actually do the processing and we do the packaging. So you
oh,
will find you will
interesting.
you will find a lot of the products that come in bulk come with our label on them.
Okay.
They're
That's one
not
way to
from
control it.
they're
Hmm.
not from the original farm. And so that's one of the ways that we're able to control prices because we've been able to put in our own, especially for a lot of stuff, but we put in our own processing plant. We have our own flour mill, our own grain cleaning plant, all of those things involved with grains, particularly and all those dry foods. And then we put in packaging plants for both that, also spices. We put in a spice packing line and we're able to package quite a variety of stuff,
Mm.
including the liquids.
Ah.
You're talking about things like oils, vinegars. You talked about sweeteners. You mentioned sugar a moment ago. I strongly recommend if you're looking at storage, storing honey rather than sugar.
Oh, yeah.
It takes about half as much to do the same amount of sweetening, especially if you use
Much
white
better for you.
honey. It's a little better. Yeah, it's better for you and it will keep literally forever. If you
Right,
can keep insects out of it, that's the only thing that will damage it. Water, insects. You get water in it, turns to mead. Insects will eat it. But
right.
any other, but otherwise, honey will keep for 100 years. It really will never go bad.
So as far as the distribution though, so you mentioned that you have become the third party or the middleman by being the distribution, but one of the unique things about y'all, you actually deliver it to wherever it is. I mean, you have drop points all over the country. And so it's a food co-op essentially, right? Is that
In a
how you
way,
would
except
explain it?
we're not a co-op, but co-op is actually a corporate structure, a cooperative
Okay.
corporate structure. So we're technically not a co-op.
Okay.
Our goal was to be able to feed families that cared about their health, healthy food. It's incredibly expensive to move healthy food, especially when you're talking about refrigerated and frozen items and things like that. How do you get your frozen fruits and vegetables? How do you get your,
Hmm.
cheese and,
Right.
things like that at an economic rate? You go to almost Azure's about one of the only places you can get a 5 pound brick of certified organic cheese. Otherwise you're going to get it in 12-ounce things from Organic Valley or something if you go to any kind of a supermarket. So those kinds of things are incredibly expensive to ship. If we were doing like an e-commerce model or something, the shipping makes that prohibitive for the average family. If
Right.
we're too expensive, except for the very wealthiest among us, then we're not doing our job because we need to be able to, because the vast majority of the families and children are not at the very top or the bottom either, for that matter. This is middle class America
Right.
that produce the vast majority of the great families that are you know around the country, and being able to support especially children eating healthy is absolutely a passion of mine. We're talking about, I can get off on a tangent there, but getting back to the delivery model, we looked at that, and tried different things, and finally we figured out that we could, if we were able to deliver just in the community and not do the last mile,
Right.
that we can deliver very cost effectively. If we're using full semis, we're running 40,000 pounds at a time. that we can get that product to the local communities, usually, locally for less than, 7 or 8% of the cost of the goods, nationally for maybe 16% of the cost of the goods. And so as we moved across east of the Rockies, we just added an 8.5% shipping charge on. That covers, actually literally covers that distance coming from here to our delivery trucks.
And
And the
now do you deliver to all 52, I mean, to all the 50 states?
we do. Alaska and Hawaii are through a third party. We don't do
Okay.
Alaska and Hawaii directly yet.
Because you probably have to fly that in, I assume, and or
Barge it in actually.
barge it.
So
Okay.
it goes in containers,
Okay.
shipping containers
Okay. Okay.
to
Yeah.
Alaska and Hawaii and Guam and Puerto Rico and some of those places are all shipping containers. The lower 48, we run our own trucks
That's
into
great.
all of the lower 48.
For us, and I was surprised when I haven't really paid attention to other drops, just because I don't need them. So I wasn't paying attention to them. But I did go out there and start looking, and I was surprised to see how many drops y'all have. They're everywhere. How many drops do you have any idea how many drops y'all have around the world, around the country?
Well, there's almost 5,000 total, but of open drops that are on our map,
Wow.
there's 3,700
Wow.
on the map. So that, it's grown a lot. We've got
Mm,
a lot of new ones. We just recently launched what we call the church program. So for you homeschoolers that are into, that also are a member of a church, we do have a program to use churches as drop points.
that's where
And
our drop is
if
in a church.
and if it's actually advertised through the church, if the church is actively involved in that, we actually do we donate our advertising budget back to the church ministry or whichever ministry they
Oh,
choose.
that's fantastic.
So if
We're
your
actually
church
talking
isn't
about that.
signed up for that, if you're willing to promote Azure a little bit at the church as a part of our advertising, it ends up being about 2% back that we will donate to your
That's great.
whatever whatever aspect of that church's ministry.
I'm speaking to Spencer, I think.
Yeah, he would know about that.
Yeah,
He works
I'm
a lot
actually
in the
having a
church
conversation with him about that whole program in a couple of months. So I'm excited about that program. I think that's going to be because so many places that when I was doing the research, so many aren't in churches that just seemed like a natural. That seemed like an absolutely perfect fit.
especially down there in the south. You guys have a lot of big churches and a lot of big church
Yes,
parking lots down in the
yes,
south.
yes.
Out here in the west, that's not quite so
Really
much.
interesting. Isn't that
Oh,
funny how
but
different it is just from one side of the country to the other?
well, my understanding church attendance in the south is like 70-80%. In
Mhm.
Oregon, it's like 10%.
Wow.
So
Think you
it's
need to be south.
uh,
It would grow so
we've
well.
got pretty deep roots. We want to regrow the culture all over the country and not
There you
just
go.
abandon, we have yeah, we're 5 generations deep on the farm we're at.
That's amazing. 5 generations? Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere.
No, I'm more likely to, hey, we're gonna homeschool 11 kids and we're gonna re-people this, you
Yeah,
know,
that's
with
amazing.
people that are gonna make this change.
Well, we are super excited to have Azure Standard as a new client for Hip Homeschool Moms. But even more than that, I'm excited to have the knowledge that y'all are going to bring to the homeschool community because like I said, on my end of the world, a lot of the people, one of my writers who writes for me, one of my writers is from California, and she was so excited to have to have you in our area. So she knew you and she was very familiar with you. As a matter of fact, she had been
Okay.
petitioning y'all to come to our area. So she was already a huge fan, not only a fan, but she was literally hounding y'all to come here. So
Oh, to
she was
Memphis? That must have
well
been
to
a
Bolivar,
Oh,
Tennessee.
Oliver. Okay, so that must have been a while ago because I
It
think you've been
was.
doing
She
that for
moved
a
here.
while.
Yeah, I think it was it was 20 years ago when she moved here, and she said she hounded y'all for about 10 of those years to come. So I don't know when you started coming to Bolivar, but I can tell you,
Well, I think Bolivar was one of the earlier ones when we actually started doing East Coast stuff. I mean, it was a little bit, it took us a while to be brave enough to figure out all the details on how to do deliveries that were thousands of miles from our main warehouse.
well, you figured it out. I'm just telling you, we love it, and people are very protective of their drops. You know, they want to ensure that they continue. And so it's a really one of the things for me that I was super surprised about was the community that you meet. I've lived here 25 years and I met people at that drop that were like-minded, very same philosophies, you know, homeschooling, doing so many of the things that I do. And I didn't even know who they were, and they lived in my community. So to me, it was surprising how much community is around the drops. So I love that. And so I'm like, hey, you know, we always joke about homeschoolers being unsocialized. I'm like, just go to a drop. You won't be socialized after that. You're going to find your friends there. So,
There have actually been a lot of friendships forged at drop
yes.
points for
Oh,
sure.
I love that. That's actually it's an unexpected benefit of doing the drops. So, but I sure have enjoyed getting to know you and talking about food security. One of the things I want to end with is talking a little bit about how to store it, you know, because we were joking about gamma lids and y'all now having your own lid and having the pantry, but and rotation, but you have the jars, you have literally, I mean, is there anything you don't have when it comes to storage?
Yes, glass jars are a wonderful way to store product. In fact, that's what my mom did back in the
Yeah.
day. She put them all in glass jars. That stuff kept for almost indefinitely.
And you can even freeze it. I mean, not that you necessarily want to because that kind of defeats the purpose of storage, but you can. You can put
Well,
jars in the freezer.
a little tip, just if there's any possibility that especially for grains and raisins and things like that, that may have been left out for a little period of time, if there's any possibility that anything was left out and there could have been insect
Bugs.
damage, if you put that product in the freezer after you store it in your bucket, it needs to be 0 for more than 7 days or 48 hours at 10 below. It
Oh,
will
wow.
kill 100% of all grain damaging insects and their eggs.
Oh my gosh. See?
So
That's good
you
news.
can, so one little tip about storage. Several different ways to store. In our house, we use the buckets for the things we use more of. So
Hmm.
my wife has a whole pantry full of the 2-gallon bucket. She loves the 2-gallon with the gamma lid
Oh,
because that will fit just about, a 5-pound bag, a little more than a 5-pound bag of
oh.
in it just about perfectly.
Do y'all
If
sell
you want to,
2 gallon buckets?
absolutely.
Of
Yeah.
course you do. I have never seen them, but I'm going to go look for them now.
We sell a 5-gallon of 3.5, and the 3.5 takes the same size lid as the 5-gallon.
Okay.
And then we sell a 2-gallon bucket, and that takes a little different size lid. And we have our twist lids and probably gammas as well that fit both sizes. There's two sizes.
That's fantastic.
And also, just a little tip for going inside the bucket. If you do think that you might be putting them in anywhere that could gather moisture or something like that, we also have the Mylar bags.
Yeah.
So the Mylar bags are very waterproof. They're UV light proof. They're very good that way. We actually originally got them because we put our bulk herbs in Mylar bags. So like medicinal herbs. So if you were to buy echinacea or something, we would ship it to you in a Mylar bag. And that's why we got them, because they're UV resistant. They won't let the quality degrade. It's the best of the best as far as keeping the quality.
That's
But
great.
now we started selling those. So if you want to do your own, you can get any kind of heat seal. It doesn't have to be fancy. We do sell, I think, the 4 jars vacuum packer thing too. But
Hmm.
with these, you can simply, I mean, if you don't have they're heat sealed to really get them strong, but you can actually do that with a clothes iron if you want to.
Wow.
You can
Okay.
take like a 2x4 or something, put it down, put the top of the bag over the top of it and run the clothes iron over it until it's nice and tight to get your heat. It's a heat seal. I mean, obviously we have fancy sealers for ours that go through there at X number a minute,
Oh, yeah.
but if you're just doing it in your house, back in the day, I used to use a clothes iron all the time.
Do you have the oxygen absorbers too, I assume?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
That's
so you
great.
can put the oxygen absorber. We have 3 sizes of Mylar bags and 3 sizes of oxygen absorbers that actually fit with those.
Food will keep forever. Like I just said, I'm still using dehydrated onion from Y2K. That's 25 years. I don't know if it's any good.
Years ago.
Hopefully, it still has nutritional
Well,
value. I'm afraid to. I'm
do you
afraid to look.
still have, does it still taste good?
Yeah, it
Still
does.
have the pungency and stuff? I mean, that's usually the nutrition is going to go down very similar to your taste profiles. So
Oh, that's
if
good to
it's
know.
sealed and canned, chances are you probably are at least 80 or 90% still there.
That's great. That's good to
Uh,
know.
Not that I recommend keeping things 25 years. I recommend,
I agree.
rotating
I
your
agree.
storage a little bit more quickly than that.
I agree. I
Um,
had a lot. That's all I have to say. I had a lot.
then there's also then glass jars. We have that everywhere from the gallon storage jar and with a wide lid. You
Right.
can fit your hand in easily. We also have the half gallon with that same wide lid.
That's
It's
great.
pretty nice depending on, the storage pantry you have. We also have the tall half gallon that is a canning jar, the canning half gallon, and that fits a wide mouth canning lid.
Oh, okay.
So that actually, I think they actually have one of those right here.
Oh, that's
Got
fantastic.
some dried
Yeah.
apples in it, but that's that size. And and then we have of the canning jars, pretty much every size in between. We have the quarts, wide and narrow. We have pint and a halfs, wide and narrow, pints, wide and narrow, and then half pints, wide and narrow. And then we have a 12 ounce that's just narrow. That's really nice for like a freezer jar for.
We haven't talked a lot about it, but you also have a blog where you teach some of these basics too. So we don't want to forget that. AzureStandard.com and go to the life section. You're going to find a lot of tutorials. They just had one that came out that was about different types of flour, which was so good. I was very appreciative of that and what's best, what each one's best used for. And so I love that. That's one of the things that I hope y'all continue to do things like that, where you're teaching us how to do things. I mean, just sitting here talking to you, I've learned so much. I've so many notes that were not related to our conversation, but they were so interesting and so good for me to know. But I hope y'all continue to really educate us, because that's something like we were talking about. It's a lost art, and so we're having to pick all that back up. So you need to do some homeschool classes online, David, so we can learn how to do all this stuff. Get your wife out there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, maybe so. I mean, hopefully we make them simple enough when we do them that the children, at least students can learn from them.
Yeah,
I
that's
really,
great.
we've got several agricultural ones out too for if you want to
Yeah,
talk about the gardening side,
I love that.
food storage side, a lot of the nutritional side. My son did a couple here just recently. He did one on pruning since he's pruned, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of trees in his career. He's the
Oh,
one that
that's
runs the
good.
orchard side, and so he did one on pruning for different kinds of trees and sizes. And
I'll be sure to add all of these to the show notes so that y'all can find them, because I didn't realize how much educational material you did have out there. So I'm excited about that. That's for us that are especially homeschoolers. We're so interested in that aspect anyway. But I definitely will be sending people that way, because I think that's one of the. I mean, it's one thing to want to buy it, but so much of it can be overwhelming. Just like us talking about earlier about the heirloom and the open pollinated. I've been doing this for 20 years, 25 years, and I didn't know that. So it's stuff that, we need to know. We need to learn it. So that's
and I do have one about seeds too, about the difference between genetically modified, hybrid, open pollinated, heirloom, what all of those things actually mean. And
That's good.
how they relate to gardening and the food that we eat, really.
Apparently, I need that. Even though I've been doing this for a long time, apparently I need that one too. Honestly, there's so much to learn. You know that. Because we're homeschoolers, we have a philosophy of lifelong learning. So I don't look at it as being necessarily a negative. It's just something I don't know. It's something I need to learn. So it's
Well,
the
it's
next
like
thing.
it absolutely is lifelong learning, and sometimes it depends on what you want to learn too. I mean,
Yeah.
people often tell me, hey, how can you know all this stuff about, farming and grain in the organic industry and all that? And I say, well, there's a lot of things that I don't know anything about. If you ask me how to play what the pro football teams are, I couldn't tell you.
Right.
I wouldn't have a clue. Probably wouldn't even know how the game is played. It's just stuff that, you know, I spent my life looking, working and studying in a completely different area than maybe the average American has.
Right. And your knowledge helps us. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about food security and about Azure, because y'all, that is part of who you are and what you're doing. That's part of what you're trying to do for families is make it easy for us. Some of those things we don't even have to learn if we're buying from you because it's already kind of packed in. And we'll talk about
Yes.
that when I interview your team member that is going to talk about the standards and how you choose your vendors and things like that, because that's
Okay.
part of
That's
it.
absolutely part of it. And we have spent a lot of time vetting vendors. Every single item that's in Azure at some point or another has come across my desk along with, we have a whole panel for every new item that comes into Azure. So that's a very important part in creating those standards and then changing the standards as they need to be changed.
Yeah.
I mean, there's new things. I mean, things like appeal it didn't even exist
Right.
10 years ago, and now that's a thing. Okay, Azure doesn't accept any produce with appeal on it.
Thank
And
you.
mostly nobody does. I mean, mostly that's just big box retail that uses that. That's your Walmarts and Costco's that do that. But, you know, never have, even though there is an organic approved version and wouldn't. So we put that in our list now. Or mRNA vaccines. We don't allow
I
any
know that's
meat
another new
mixed
one
with
that's coming out.
that. It's fairly new. I mean, mRNA, yeah, we don't allow any meat that's had that in our in our system. And then there's other ones that have been out for a long time, like genetically modified. We got genetically modified out 20 years ago already. But
That's something else that we didn't mention. They actually not only do they have produce and dairy items and supplements and meat. So they have a little bit of everything there.
the goal of Azure is now, and again, it maybe wasn't in the very, very beginning, but now my goal is to be able to give the better product, completely replace the grocery store.
Yeah.
And right now, we maybe don't come often enough to every area. We're building a new warehouse in Ohio, so we can do the East Coast a little more frequently.
Oh, good. That's good
Um,
news.
Probably be sometime in 26 before that's actually up and working, but it's under construction at the moment. So our goal is that we want to be able to be the alternative to the standard grocery store. So everything that you would get in the grocery store, we have available, only a little bit better version.
A little bit.
Um,
I'd say it's a little bit more than a little bit.
well, hopefully we have a lot more than a
Yep.
little bit, and then
Yep.
some things that maybe are a little bit. We want to have standards, and it's what every grocery store should have.
Mm.
But we want to be the alternative to highly processed foods. And I feel like that we're set up in a unique position to do that because I couldn't, from a conscience sake, allow any of those highly processed type preservatives and ingredients and stuff into any of the foods that Azure carries
Or
or
supplements.
supplements. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
they have
looking on the
yep.
supplement thing as well because so many of the supplements, you read the ingredients. I mean, there's more fillers and stuff in than even the active ingredient, which might even be synthetic. And it's
I
considered
have
to be
one.
a
Oh my goodness. Sorry. I didn't mean to leave you there for a second. My favorite ashwagandha.
okay.
I do the
Morning
ashwagandha.
Wilds Harvest, yeah, and they're good friends and neighbors.
Mm.
They're about 2 hours south of us here where their farm is.
And I
And
do the
Oregon Wild
thyroid.
Harvest does.
I have Hashimoto's, so I have thyroid nourish that y'all do, and I have the core copper that y'all do. I have all kinds of different supplements that I'm getting from y'all, but that one's one of my new favorites. I had not ever used the ashwagandha ginkgo combination, and I found it through y'all, and I'm in love with it. It totally, it's like if you have brain fog, here's your answer.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's nature's. I mean, in the very beginning, the plants of the field, right? If you look in Genesis, the plants of the field were given to us for food and for medicine,
That's right.
for the healing and for the
We've
nourishment.
really lost that. If we have lost food, we have totally lost the medicinal value of food. Totally.
Medicinal value of food and herbs, like that you're pointing to there with the ginkgo ashwagandha.
Mm-hmm.
That is purely just plants
So good.
that have a very strong medicinal value.
Well, that's one of my new things that I had just started trying were the supplements, and I'm kind of excited about all the different things that y'all are offering because I didn't even know y'all had supplements until recently. So, and I'm a fan already, but
Good.
then there's more stuff. Every time I turn around, y'all have new stuff. Matter of fact, I went to the website today, just got new items, and I was like, oh gosh, don't let me go there. I'll be in trouble. I think I got an email on all the new items.
Well, there's new items, but we also are dropping off just about as many
Oh, do you?
because
Just rotate through.
we do rotate, but we are dropping, back in the day before we had a lot of conventional type things.
Mm-hmm.
So today you will not find any grain, for instance, no wheat type grains that are not
Okay.
certified organic. We don't even do it anymore.
Okay.
We have dropped the conventional versions for two reasons. One is with our buying power and our processing, we are able to get the price very similar, if not cheaper than the conventionals.
Right.
And so now we are dropping conventional items pretty regularly because we are able to close that gap with our buying power and our processing, so they're not enough difference in price that we are hurting anybody from a financial perspective by not having those things that I can't be as proud of. So I know that we're able to step it up a couple levels, and so we're very focused on really refining our product mix to even step it up one step better, is without creating a price problem.
For those that are not familiar with Azure, we will have a link and a sign up and a discount. We have a 15% discount for all new subscribers or new customers to Azure Standard. So that will also be in the show notes. So y'all be looking there. Well, David, thank you so much for being here. I am so sorry to take so much of your time today, but you're fascinating and it was interesting and I kept going and I apologize, but y'all know me, when I get on a good homeschool conversation, I can't stop. So, but thank you so much for being here.
Very nice to meet you as well.
Nice to meet you too. We'll talk again soon.
Sounds good.
Have a great day. Thanks for joining me here for this homeschool conversation. If this is your first time here, I'd love for you to join and subscribe so we can keep walking this journey together. And if today's episode encouraged you, please share it with a friend because homeschooling is better when we lift each other up. Keep learning, keep wondering, most of all, keep showing up. You're doing something amazing, Mom. See you next time.